think I'll just have a seat today. Kind of like this, actually. This might take just a minute to sort of get used to, though. So today we wrap up our Advent series by talking about the last name that Isaiah calls Jesus in Isaiah 9:6, which is the Prince of Peace. So I want to ask you guys, how many of you have enjoyed watching any Christmas movies or Christmas TV shows this year? Anybody? Yeah? It's okay. You can be an adult and watch those too. It's fine. I have been. So what are some of your favorites? Anybody have any favorites? Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer? Miracle on 34th Street? A Christmas Story? Christmas Vacation? Okay. I think I've seen all of those this year like 3 times because Disney shows them, and my daughter's really been into those this year. I think she just kind of, the light bulb went off this year, and she's really figured it all out. So, but those are awesome. So these things remind me, all these shows that we watch each year, they remind me from when I was a child. I'm going to go way back for some of you guys. But when I was a child, cartoons only came on like certain times. They weren't on 24/7. And Christmas cartoons, like Rudolph the Red-Nosed Reindeer, it wasn't actually a cartoon. It was animated, but I don't really know what that's called. Claymation, some of you do. So there you go, claymation. And it was pretty cool. It was like really neat, to see this claymation, Rudolph and these shows. But, it was one thing that I remember when I was younger, growing up, watching these shows, what were the commercials that would come on? And you've seen some commercials this year, right, during the Christmas season. Some of the best commercials come on during Christmas time. And so just because Christmas is kind of a nostalgic time, because it's kind of a peaceful time and that sort of thing, I thought, what if I could just share some of the commercials that I enjoyed from my childhood with you guys? And so, what do you know? As it turns out, we have some. And so some of the video quality might not be quite as well because we didn't have HD and this and that like in the 80s, but 80s were cool, but they weren't that cool. So, but some of you are like, no, they were actually. But we have some commercials that like I watched when I was a child that we want to share. So I want to go ahead and just share those with you. So let's just watch real quick.
Licking all the creamy middles, dunking all the crunchy cookies like he did when he was little. It's so hard to hide the kid inside with Christmas and O-R-E-O.
It's
Okay, aren't those great? I mean, how can you not be in the Christmas spirit after watching those? And if you're not in the Christmas spirit, just go out and buy a pack of Oreos, and then you will be, right? Because apparently that's all that it takes. So I share those because I think those commercials really sort of capture the Christmas spirit. You know, they sort of get us in this feeling of Christmas and feeling good about the world and feeling good about life. And they also invite us to imagine what the world would be like if there was more love and peace to go around, and Coca-Cola and Oreos, right? But if there was a little more love and a little more peace in the world, they kind of invite us to imagine what the world would be like if that was the case, right? But when we consider the condition of our world today, it seems that love and peace have all but gone missing, doesn't it? Just think for a minute about all the many different things that we have, experienced in our world this year. All the sad things, all the tragedies that have happened, right? This year, refugees around the world hit an all-time high in history. There are more refugees, more displaced people in the world, right now, today, than at any other point in history, so far as we know. Think about all the things that have happened in France and Africa and other parts of the world recently, acts of violence and things like that. And then also, even right here in America, shootings and violence. We just, there's so much has happened in our world and even right here in our country, today that it's hard for us to imagine, a world of peace. And with all these things going on, how can we say that Jesus is the Prince of Peace, right? If Jesus is the Prince of Peace, then why isn't there more peace in our world today? If Jesus is the Prince of Peace, then what does that peace look like, and how can we have it, right? Our scripture passage today is from John chapter 16, verses 29 through 33. So I invite you to follow along and listen along as I read through it. His disciples said, now you are speaking plainly and not using figurative speech. Now we know that you know all things and do not need anyone to question you. This is why we believe that you came from God. And Jesus answered them, do you now believe? Behold, the hour is coming. Indeed, it has come, when you will be scattered, each to his own home, and will leave me alone. Yet I am not alone, for the Father is with me, and I have said these things to you, that in me you may have peace. In the world you will have tribulation, but take heart, I have overcome the world. From this passage, there are two things that Jesus says that I want to highlight this morning. The first thing that he says is in the world you will have tribulation. In the world you will have trouble. In the world there's always going to be tribulation, right? Have we ever known a time when there wasn't trouble in the world? Has there ever been a time when there wasn't some country at war with some country, or some type of war or violence or something like that going on in the world? There's never been. Ever since the fall of Adam and Eve, right? Ever since sin came into the human heart, there's always been violence. There's always been wars. There's always been some type of trouble in the world, right? So there's always going to be this. There's always going to be trouble in the world. We're always going to experience some type of hardship in our lives, or, whatever it may be. But then notice the second thing that Jesus says. He says, in me, you can have peace. In me, you may have peace. Even in the midst of wars and unrest, he says that in him, we can have peace. So what does this peace look like? And how can we have it, right? I want to talk about that. First, we have to remember that God alone is the source of real and lasting peace in our lives. God alone is the source of real and lasting peace in our lives. Have you ever had just a lot of things going on in your life? I know some of you guys probably just finished up school or finished up with exam, or You know, it's Q4, right, for those of you who are in the business world, and you're wrapping things up, and there's a whole lot going on, and the year ends here. Have you ever had just all this stuff maybe happen in your life, or maybe something happened in your life that wasn't really good at all, and you said, I just need some peace and quiet? I just need some peace and quiet. If I can just get through this, I'm going to take a vacation, or I'm going to go over here. I just need some peace and quiet, right? And what happens? We take a vacation, or we go away, or we take a break from whatever it is we may be doing for a little while. And during that time, we have some peace and quiet, right? But then what happens? We come back, and we kind of jump right back into where we were, right? So in other words, it's temporary, but it doesn't last permanently. And that's because real and lasting peace comes from God.